Bitcoin and blockchain. In fact, in 2008, we were electing a new president, and we were having a Wall Street crisis. At that same time, there was a paper that was put out by Satoshi Nakamoto called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Has anyone read this paper? We got one. It's actually about like 12 to 14 pages long. It's not a super technical read. I would actually encourage you to read it. Does anyone here own Bitcoin? Maybe a few hands. It's unfortunate. It's like 10x this year. It's incredibly important, I believe, to experiment with these technologies. And just to kind of give you an example, how many of you know how to code or program a mobile application? Handful. How many of you have been in a room, in a meeting, and were presented with a problem, and one of you said, it'd be great if we had a mobile application that could help address that problem. A lot more of you. But you don't know how to code. You don't know how to build a mobile application. What allowed you to say that? It's because you play with it every day. You got apps on your smartphone. You play with them. You understand that you can access the internet. You can access maps. You can access your location. You can order things. You understand the basics. So how will you understand Bitcoin and blockchain, outside of this talk that I'm about to give you, if you don't have it on your phone, if you don't play with it? So I encourage you. Just download $10 in Bitcoin. Download the wallet. Buy it. Play with it. Because that'll give you a better understanding of how to come up with ways that it can address some of the things that you're trying to address. But what is Bitcoin and blockchain? And how do we understand it? Why is it so important? Why do people say that it's the second coming of the internet? Well, one of the great things about going digital is the ability to replicate things at near zero cost. So I could take a picture of this room right now. I could send it to all of you. I could put it on Instagram. I could continue to replicate it. It would cost me virtually nothing to do that, which is fantastic. But what if we had an asset, like a dollar, a digital dollar? Can we continue to replicate that? No, there's a cost. It would have no value. So people get caught up, and it's a little hard to understand when you talk about money. So let's talk about something else that most of you are familiar with. Has anyone here got an electronic ticket to a concert or a sporting event? Yeah, most of you. Now, when I talk with people around the world, there's one feeling that is international. That is butterflies in your stomach. When you go to scan the barcode, and you're like, yeah, a lot of you guys are laughing, that nervous laugh, because you don't know when you were emailed that PDF or when it was sent to you or you bought it online from a secondary market. Is that really mine? Like, did they sell it to 10 other people? Now you have those butterflies because you know that this digital asset that represents value could have been replicated. That's the value that cryptocurrencies bring. They create a unique ledger that verifies who the owner of that digital asset is without giving the ability to replicate it. So let me give you an example. StubHub, which is a popular resale site for tickets in the United States, a couple of guys bought tickets for $195 for what they were assuming was Kobe Bryant's last game. And then Kobe, 3 weeks later, announced that he was going to retire. Tickets shot up 664%, but they're good. They bought the tickets, right? Nope. StubHub reached out, and somewhere in their terms of service, they were allowed to actually take those tickets back. And they said, we'll give you a $250 credit. Like, we don't care. We want the tickets. We're Kobe fans. But for some reason, according to their terms of service, they were able to take it back. So what you have to understand is that Bitcoin was built for people, not companies or organizations. To make sure that you have the rights you need. So that if you buy a ticket, terms of service that allows people to take it back. Which is incredibly important as we go from an analog to digital world. Now, some people think Bitcoin's crazy. In fact, I'm sure many of you actually think Bitcoin is crazy. But I would argue that the world we're living in is even crazier. So, for example, if I was to ask Luke, what's your email address? Because I want to send you an email. Luke might say it's Luke at whatever, creativeinnovations.com. Great. Send you an email. That's it. I don't ask him if he's using Hotmail or Gmail or Outlook or iPhone or iPad or a desktop. I don't ask any of those questions. Why? Because there's an open interoperable protocol called SMTP that allows us to seamlessly transfer messages back and forth regardless of who I use as my email provider, regardless of who Luke uses as his email provider. Well, that's the same thing with cryptocurrencies. I can transfer an asset from my wallet to your wallet without having to ask you, what wallet are you using? What bank are you using? Because if I said, hey, Luke, I want to send you $10. I'm in the US and he's in Australia. We're going to play a game of 20 questions. Do you use PayPal? Do you use TransferWise? Do you use this, that? I don't know. Do you use Venmo? I don't know. I'm over the age of 35, right? We'll just go back and forth. And so, arguably, the world that we live in today is much crazier in terms of how we transfer assets. Because you don't have these open protocols, which is what cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin enable. So what is the blockchain, which is the underlying technology that powers cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? It's just a ledger. It's simply a ledger of debits and credits with addresses. You can transfer money. Some governments are starting to put property title on the blockchain, or you can do tickets, as we discussed. When's Australia going to get on board? And what that creates is decentralized trust, which eliminates intermediaries. And if you think about it, it's kind of similar to the internet. The internet, you got several open protocols that run over TCP/IP. You got SMTP, which is email, FTP, which is upload and download. You got HTTP, which allows you to browse the web from any browser that you want, regardless of the site that you're going to access. And similarly, we're starting to create several protocols. Obviously money, but identity, reputation, and marketplace. And if you think about what those four things represent, they actually represent a lot of the companies online today. You could call that the eBay stack, right? Because what is eBay? eBay has four things. It's money transfer, it's identity, it's reputation, it's marketplace. What is Uber? Money transfer, identity, reputation, marketplace. What is Airbnb? Money transfer, identity, reputation, marketplace. StubHub. All of these things are basically these four protocols. And so what happens when you've got these four things, and they're creating more, is that all of a sudden, you're less dependent on one company. What if you were a driver and you just digitally raised your hand and said, I'm a driver? I've got a digital identity and it's somehow authenticated through the government. I've got a 4.5-star reputation that works on all platforms. And I'm just digitally raising my hand to say, hey, I'm in this marketplace. And we'll seamlessly transfer money through Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. Then it doesn't matter if you're using Uber to browse the available drivers or Luke's ride-sharing app. All of a sudden, you get this open, interoperable, accessible marketplace that breaks down the current moats that we have with many of the platforms. So it re-engineers networking effects to benefiting one company, but to benefiting everyone. which is truly transformational, was the original promise of the web. And so let me give you a few examples of ways people are exploring this. So this is Fernando de Soto, who's a prominent economist from Peru. And his thesis is that if people, for example, in his country of Peru, had access to more clear property title, they'd have better access to credit. And so this is an example of one piece of property title. It's just a chain of transactions, very long, and he wants to digitize it. And he's working with several governments now to put property title on the blockchain so that regardless of the government in power, you have clear, transparent ledgers that show who owns what, and a corrupt government makes it harder for them to be able to take property away from anyone.